We'll now recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee, Mr. Green, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Ramon, is that correct?
Yes.
You heard me earlier go over a list of prosecutions and convictions. Do you agree with what was on the list? Generally speaking, I know that you didn't have a chance to actually have me hand it to you. And first, do you agree, generally speaking?
I do.
And do you also agree that I did ask you prior to this hearing to provide me information on prosecutions so that I might have this available at the hearing? Is this true?
Yes, you did.
And I appreciate your providing the information that I requested. Mr. Chairman, if there are no objections, I'd like to have this placed in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, I'd like for you to give a little bit more information about you. Tell us about the number of years you've been in the Justice Department, please.
I've been a prosecutor with the Justice Department for almost 17 years. I started in the criminal division in 1996 as a trial attorney in the narcotic and dangerous drug section in the criminal division, and went to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland for much of my career, and then returned to the criminal division more recently in the last 5 years in various leadership positions.
Is it fair to say that you have prosecuted many cases as opposed to few?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that you prosecuted a good number, and would you give just a guesstimate as to the number you've been associated with, please?
I couldn't even give an estimate. I've supervised and myself handled hundreds of cases over the last 17 years.
And you have an understanding of both civil and criminal prosecution. Is this a fair statement?
Better understanding of criminal than civil, but yes.
But is it true that in civil prosecutions, from time to time, persons who admit or find themselves paying a fine or penalty, they don't always acknowledge liability in civil cases, not criminal cases?
I think that's fair to say.
And is it true that, well, let me just ask you, will you prosecute any size, any complexity, any difficulty of case?
Where the evidence and the law supports it, we absolutely will.
And is it true that you have you failed to prosecute any case because of systemic risk?
It has never been a sole factor in our decision. As I've mentioned during the course of this hearing, collateral consequences can be a factor and have been a factor in our decision-making in the past.
I'm going to go back to the list that I talked to you about earlier and I called to the attention of the public earlier. Is it true that the chairperson of the board of directors of Sanford International Bank received 110 years?
He did.
Is he currently serving time, or is he currently on appeal?
My understanding is that he's currently serving his sentence.
And I have another list, and I thank the staff for providing this information. Much of what I have came from staff, but a list of what appears to be monies that have been made available to the Justice Department for various reasons in terms of settlements. And I'm just looking at the numbers. One case, $8.5 billion. Another case, $25 billion. Another case, $285 billion. Another case, 10.4 billion. And I just have a long list of cases wherein you've settled for large sums of money. It might be helpful to just mention the types of cases rather quickly. You have dealt with mortgage fraud settlements, mortgage-backed security settlements, fraudulent practices. These are the types of cases that you have settled. Is this a fair statement?
It is, and we've secured record penalties and forfeitures in the last several years.
Now, I think that there's always more that the Justice Department can do, and I think that it's fair to criticize some of the things that have occurred. But I also want people to know that there are people at the Justice Department who are busily prosecuting cases, and that the Justice Department, I don't think is perfect, but I do think that I will acknowledge that there are some prosecutions taking place that are very meaningful. And with this, Mr. Chairman, I think I'm going to yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you.